As you know, Castlevania is about killing Dracula. So coming into this, it being a continuing series, one of the main worries is okay, who's the who's the villain, right? Like what is the continuing villain? And that's kind of how I felt for a long time in this season. There's this like Messiah they're talking about, and I could kind of just didn't really care, man. Carmilla was so fucking good, so cool, and she's nowhere near that level.
Hey everybody, before we get started, I just wanted to say if you enjoy our content and want to stay up to date with our videos, hit the subscribe button. It really helps the channel. Thanks. So, on to the video.
Hello and welcome back to my channel, Random Drop, and this week I want to talk about Netflix's Castlevania. And in this video, doing my review of Castlevania Nocturne. I've just finished watching 8 episodes. Each 8 episodes is like 28 minutes long or so, was that get you like 4 hours of entertainment? Pretty damn good. It's not perfect, but man, was I entertained and glued to that the TV, wanting the next episode every time. I was like, oh, I'm gonna only watch 2 episodes a day. Nah, I killed it. Like, I absolutely destroyed it. It did not stand a chance, man. So let's get into it. Nocturne is, of course, the sequel to the original Castlevania series, which started on Netflix, which started with like a bunch of years ago, man. Like many people didn't really like. It came out and there was much belief in it, right? It's like it's an anime adaptation about a game that barely has any story, right? It's a game about like you getting a flame whip and hitting Dracula and punching walls and turkeys coming out of it, right? Like there was a world there, but there's like bits and pieces and lots of it very generic and just not completely there. So hey, oh, we're making an anime of it, right? It's kind of like saying, hey, we're making an anime of Super Mario, right? Like, and filling in all those gaps. And which I haven't watched the Mario movie, but in terms of the adaptation itself, it's completely successful, right? It's downright crazy that they got away with it. The story of Castlevania being so light means that when they're adapting it, unlike other adaptations like One Piece or Witcher, you can fuck with it. You can try different things. As long as like the soul and the badassery is there, man, it's there, right? There's a fucking flame whip and fucking vampires, and then like the monsters from the games come out, and the Dracula does the thing and he says the line, right? Alucard was there in the first season, and it was great. It was fan service in so many ways, but also was telling this brand new thing, right? It was getting this world and like piecing it together, and the creators were able to build off of it. And this is a different type of adaptation, right? It's not an adaptation because there's not really much source material. There's like barely little, but clearly the animators loved the series and just took those pieces of like, hey, what is the juice of Castlevania, right? And then let's like just make it berserk, and dude, it's great, right? So the weird wit and charm and all that. The writing is great in the first season. It's awesome, right? Starts off with a super violent, incredible first season. Second season builds off of that and gives us an incredible finale of the culmination of what, like, the first season was very short, and the second season was like the finishing of that story. Third season kind of meanders a little bit, and that's kind of how I feel about Nocturne in ways, and I'll get into. But meanders a bit but builds up the world a bit, and there's a lot of political intrigue and machinations going on in season 3, and then season 4 is the payoff for those season 4 is the payoff of those 8 episodes is season 3, and makes season 4 so incredible. It's so good, season 4, because of the building they did in season 3. Wow, there's lots of parts where again it did feel like meandering or filler. It was still, again, building up that world to get to this monumental moment. And yeah, I don't want to spoil. I mean, go watch season 1, right? If you haven't watched it, but it's a great. As you know, Castlevania is about killing Dracula. So coming into this, it being a continuing series, one of the main worries is okay, who's the villain, right? Like what is the continuing villain? And that's kind of how I felt for a long time in this season. There's this like Messiah they're talking about, and I kind of just didn't really care, man. Carmilla was so fucking good, so cool, and she's nowhere near that level. She's nowhere near as cool as Carmilla or menacing in that way. At the very end, she kind of gets like super powered, more like demonic-y and like gaudy, but it's just that like, oh, she's scary because she got a power level boost, not because like I'm actually scared of this woman. Compared to like, again, Carmilla from the original series, man. Like she was a monster, and that fight scene in season 4. Oh my god. Anyways, we're talking about Nocturne. But yes, her sidekick, I'm sorry, or her like right hand, she's right now in the trailer up there fighting. She's freaking cool. She's incredible. All her fight scenes are awesome. All of her different outfits and dresses and forms, her plotting, she's A tier, incredible. I think she's like the actual villain of the season, while like this Messiah figure's kind of in the background, shows up in the last couple episodes, then all of a sudden has like a power boost, and then like the heroes aren't really able to beat it, right? This very hopeless feeling towards the end of the season, which you obviously feel like, okay, they're clearly building up to something more, but I kind of just wanted them to move on from this character, because I just like, they did not make me care about the vampire Messiah or whoever the fuck she is. Like, it's not Dracula. It's nowhere near Dracula. It's not Carmilla. We haven't had enough time to like have this girl build up, so maybe in the second season she'll get off real quick or something. I don't know, but yeah, this is very much a story about them dealing with this Messiah, right? But like season 3, in terms of season 3 where Sifa and Trevor were kind of like in this village, and it was like the story about the village, right? This is kind of that, right? But with Richter. It's about Richter and his surrogate family, right? His found cousin family. I think they're like cousins removed or whatever. Them kind of just like living their life here. And, you know, there's vampire attacks every now and then. The revolution is starting. The world is changing in a lot of ways. And it's just kind of like them dealing with the events in their area, right? And they happen to live next to like a vampire spawning ground, apparently. It is their story in this very small, you know how like the other scenes were very world spanning. This is in a very small condensed area, and it seems like the very beginning of these machinations, because they're like, oh, we need to make more demon spawns, but you've only made like 10. Meanwhile, like in the last season, they made hundreds, right? Very easily and quickly. You definitely come into this like vampires have taken a back seat in society, and they're kind of just like in the shadows. And I think the main villain's just trying to like bring them back up to the top again, and be like, bring back the old days where vampires were just slaughtering people in waves and shit, and everyone feared them, right? So it's like, yeah, the sun has, part of the plot is like, hey, the sun no longer rules over us. So it's very small in scope, but there's a lot of incredible fight scene. Just holy shit, every fight scene in this show is incredible. The animation is still top notch. The music, there's specifically one scene when Trevor gets his powers and the music is popping off and he's doing badass magic shit. We finally get the flame whip with like an actual flame whip. The whip is on fire instead of like Trevor's like exploding. It would touch, I'm guessing back in the original series, it was imbued with holy power, so when it would touch evil, it would literally explode with holy power. This is like a blue flame fire whip. It is fucking cool. And Trevor does the grand cross when he first gets his power. There's like big blue cross flame, right? So he looks super powerful in that moment. But then, you know, he's still very new at what he's doing, or very green at what he's doing. So he gets his ass kicked, right? They all kind of, they have a plan. They try to go through with it, and it kind of just falls apart. Still has some great fight scenes and all that, but, and I think it's maybe because of the 8 episodes, you don't really connect with Trevor that much. He's kind of, not Trevor, Richter. He's kind of already established. He is very much established. When the show starts, he's already a badass vampire killer, which so was Trevor. But Trevor looked like he was like in his fucking 30s, right? Like he had been around for a while, while Richter's like probably barely 20, 18, 19, 20 in this. So it's like you originally see him when he's a little kid and runs off. Clearly he has had some training from his mother. Then he disappears, and it doesn't really go back into like how he finds Maria and her family and all that, right? They're like removed cousins and stuff like that. It doesn't really get into that. It's just kind of like, hey, they fostered him, he lives with them. It's like his mother and sister now, and he's just living life with them, right? He has the Belmont jacket for some reason and all, like he has all the gear, he knows how to use knives, like he's just like established already for some reason, which I don't like need a training arc or anything like that, but it is odd, right? Like he's kind of like the last of them, and then he just has these powers all of a sudden, or has all these abilities. Sure, I'll accept it. But yeah, it's just like, it felt like I was missing a chapter of Richter's life that I kind of wanted to see, right? Because he is already very much well past the death of, like, he's over the death of his mother, and not over it in many ways, right? Obviously, but he just feels established, right? But as the show goes on, you get the dynamic of him and his, you know, his sister Maria, who's in the games as well, and their dynamic and how they all work together and kind of what he's doing. He's been doing this for this bit, and like he would kill a vampire like every now and right, but now vampires are showing up in droves like every night. So he's like, hey, there's something going on. People mention a vampire messiah, and so forth. The story goes on. I forgot her name. I'm sorry. I'm very terrible with names, especially these names. But the girl, the third girl, who came from America, who has like the iron shifting powers, where she can like make blades and shit. She's incredible. She's probably the best character in the show at the moment. She's so goddamn cool. I really, really like her, and I can't wait to see more of her. And I want Trevor to like do more, right, eventually, and come out of his shell. It's weird going. Goddamn, I keep saying Trevor. It's so weird going from Trevor to Richter, who is much less like Trevor was overpowered. Richter is not yet, but he like literally got his powers back near the end of the season. So we'll probably see him actually like get stronger. Like, I want to see him like throw the fucking holy cross with magic and shit, and like throw bottles of holy fire and stuff, just like in Symphony of the Night, dude. I want him to do all that dumb bullshit. So hopefully we get to see more of that, more of him casting his superpowers, because that's what he like supers in Symphony of the Night. That's what Grand Cross was, right? Where he just fucking did the and lit everything on fire. It's super cool. I digress. Other than like a few like pacing issues or like questionable decisions, character motives, and things like that, right? Some of the characters don't completely make sense, like the father and how devoted he is to this crazy bullshit, and certain other characters. Overall, it's not like incredible writing, right? It's not like this most amazing, mind-blowing thing, but the action, the music, the animation, it's goddamn top-notch. I was so entertained for the whole thing. But yeah, there's some like story annoyances, again, pacing wise and stuff, because it feels like it's just trying to do a lot in 8 episodes, and it's got to move it along, right? Especially like how Richter gets his powers, right? It is a very anime thing of like, they're gonna kill my family, and then he powers up, right? Which like the show never really did that type of stuff before. But I did say Richter is a freaking anime character, so it's exciting because Richter is like lots of people's favorite Belmont, so I do want to see more of them. But it is we're at like the young stages of Richter, right? Until we get like full-blown ass superhero Richter. It's awesome when he puts the fucking dumbass bandana on. It's so cool. And he has a lot of Trevor's mannerisms, which is great. And then of course, I mean, we got to talk about it, the very ending of the show, when all is lost, everyone was running. You're like, man, here comes the season 2. You're not sure where the show's gonna go next, and fucking Alucard stabs that bitch in the heart that was chasing them, and you're just like, oh, what did they stab Richter? What's happening? And like the frame, then you just see a long sword piercing through this girl and a black glove, and you're like, this is where this guy's been at. This is where he's been at. Alucard, my boy, holy shit, he looks incredible. Again, he comes in at the very end of the season to be like, yo, I'm with you. And yeah, I popped off when I saw him. I was like, thank God, yeah, fuck yeah, we're doing Symphony of the... Because I thought maybe this wasn't going to happen until later. I thought maybe Symphony of the Night, that's where Richter and Alucard meet, would be happening later. But seems they're like doing a combination of those things, right? But this is Castlevania, right? And there's no Dracula. In seasons 1 through 4, they're able to keep Dracula relevant. They're able to keep Dracula relevant through the whole 4 seasons, and his story was still there the whole time, right? Even though he technically died in season 2, you felt the effects in season 3 and 4. It was still ultimately like kind of about Dracula and Dracula's castle. So it's weird going into the series now being like, hey, here's Richter Belmont, but there's no Dracula, because Dracula's story is over. But there is the remnants of Alucard, who is Dracula's son, and there's basically a person acting like they're the new Dracula, and Alucard's not gonna have none of that shit, right? It's just, again, it's hard to like care about this villain. I think that's what my main takeaway from this is like, man, Castlevania season 1 and 2 had such an incredible villain and villains, right? Again, Carmilla started there as well, and the Runeforge guys, right, on the sides as well. Like, just the intrigue and all that in the original series was so good, and building up to like this incredible thing. Nocturne is just way more simple, right? And then there's the lack of Dracula, and you can heavily feel that he's not in the show, and you can heavily feel the lack of other villains to like carry that weight, right? The main second hand is cool, but again, she's still a lackey for someone know or care about. Like, oh, she's a goddess and she's acting very serious and some characters don't take her seriously until like she finally shows her power. But it's just like, oh, she makes black electricity thing that can blot out the sun. Like, I don't know what that means. I don't know how powerful that is and what the blood of Sekhmet even is and all that. So again, very lackluster villain. I do like that, like, she kind of wins in the end, but like, I just kind of not excited to see more of her. So hopefully she gets her ass kicked, and I don't want this whole series to be about them fighting her. This is basically what I'm saying. And hopefully we kind of move it along, and a fucking castle comes, and then it flips in reverse, and they have to go through the castle in reverse. That's what I want to see. I just want Symphony of the Night. Someone's trying to collect Dracula's body parts and put them back together, and then summon something. Which actually, that was part 4. Fuck, that was season 4. Yeah, the villain was weak. That's probably like my main takeaway from of it. Richter is not fully sold me yet. I think his design's cool and all that, but I'm just not connected to him like how connected with Trevor, man. Like, fuck, I really liked Trevor in a lot of ways. But maybe, again, this is kind of his coming of age story, right? He has to build up to the hero that we all know Richter as. So anyways, what did you think? Did you disagree, agree? Leave a comment below, and I will see you on the next random drop review.